Hi guys, welcome back to Thursday Top Lessons. Hope you've liked the video so far. Please do subscribe to our channel. So fire, a wheel or axe. These are perhaps the most important tools that have helped in evolution of mankind. But the one tool that in my opinion does not get its due is negotiation. Negotiation has helped human life daily since ages. It is the bridge that has enabled transition, a smooth transition for many, while for many it has literally meant water under the bridge to move forward. Chris Voss, a former FBI negotiation expert, lays out his entire experience from hostages to bank robberies to even landing top clients for his consultancy. This will help you approach all your problems, big and small, in a way that will surely tilt the odds in your favor. So here it goes. So before we begin, let's first try and answer an important question. What is negotiation? You don't need to like it. You just need to understand that's how the world works. Negotiation does not mean browbeating or grinding someone down. It simply means playing the emotional game that the human society is set up for. So claim your prerogative to ask for what you think is right. So in the first point itself, I let you in on a secret. FBI's most potent negotiating tool, the open-ended question. The queries that the other side can respond to but does not have any fixed answers. It buys you time. It gives them the illusion of control without the idea how constrained they are by it. For example, you just ask questions like, how am I supposed to do that? Or how do I give you money? Or how do I know he or she is alive? FBI questions. Simply ask logistical questions. But before we apply these tools, let us all rewind a little when we, studied economics. What was the first principle of economics? That humans behave rationally. The fundamental assumption behind this premise is wrong. So he says that without a deep understanding of human psychology, without the acceptance that we are crazy, irrational, impulsive, and emotionally driven animals, all the raw intelligence and mathematical logic in this world is little help in this fraught and shifting interplay between two people. Perhaps we are the only animal that haggles. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky won a Nobel Prize just for showing man is a very irrational beast. We'll cover that book later. So, the centerpiece to address this feeling or emotional issue is called tactical empathy. Listening, he says, is not a passive activity. It is the most active thing that you can do to influence a person. It takes a whole team in the FBI just to listen. It's really not easy to listen well because we are easily distracted. We engage in selective listening, hearing only what we want to hear. Our minds are acting on cognitive bias to find consistency rather than truth. So tactical empathy is basically emotional intelligence on steroids. The next point, good negotiators, they know they have to be ready for possible surprises. But great negotiators aim to use their skills to reveal the surprises that they are certain exist. You have to have multiple hypotheses in your mind and be alert to use the incoming information to winnow true hypotheses from the false ones. So basically, in essence, hypotheses guide, assumptions blind. The next trick is going too fast. Going too fast is one of the mistakes that all negotiators are prone to making. If we are too much in a hurry, people can feel as if they are not being heard, and we risk undermining the rapport and trust that we've built. Passage of time is one of the most important tools for a negotiator. Slow it down. Next, it's how we speak and the demeanor that matters. It's like involuntary neurological telepathy. We signal the world whether we are ready to play or fight, laugh or cry. Understanding reflex and putting it into practice is critical to the success of just about every negotiation that there is to learn. You can flip the emotional switch in an instant with the right delivery. A smile on your face and in your voice will increase your own mental agility. Now we move to perhaps one of the most important tools, mirroring. It is essentially imitation. It's another neuro behavior that humans display in which we copy each other to comfort each other. It can be done with speech patterns, body language, vocabulary, tempo, and tone of voice. This is based on the simple fact, a biological principle, that we fear what's different and are drawn to what's similar. The next tool is labeling. It is a way of validating someone's emotion by acknowledging it. It simply states to spot the feelings, turn them into words, and then calmly and respectfully repeat it back to them. Labeling mostly starts with it looks like, it sounds like, or it seems like, and not something like I'm hearing that. You have to de-emphasize the I. Remember, we talked about our video, ego is the enemy, the focus of de-emphasizing I, how important it is in your life. So I basically gets people's guards up. Labeling negative emotions diffuses them and reinforces the positive ones. Now with these tools, let's try and understand how to confront and get your way without confrontation. It's a personal learning for me as well. I am very uncomfortable with confrontation. So here it goes. First point, use the late night FM DJ voice. Those, how are you doing? Second, start with, I'm sorry. Third, mirror. Just mirroring is basically simply repeating the last 2-3 words or the important 2-3 words from a line that your counterpart has just said. And then give at least 4 seconds of silence to let the mirror work its magic. And repeat. Mostly it's not the other guy across the table who scares us. It's the conflict itself. Now, a lot of us have been trained to understand the importance and power of getting to yes. But he says, at the end of the day, yes is often a meaningless answer that hides deeper objections and maybe is even worse. Pushing hard for a yes doesn't get the negotiator any closer to a win. It just angers the other side. Yes and maybe are often worthless, whereas no, it always starts the negotiation. That is why the famous billionaire Mark Cuban has said, every no gets me closer to what I want. So it is because once you've said no, you've protected your turf and you feel more open and comfortable to hear what the other party has to say. So it is important to get that no out first. An important trick that Chris Voss mentions here is a lot of us do email communication nowadays simply to get no response. Try and get a no. Try this mail the next time you are willing to get a response from the other side. Simply write, have you given up on this project? Or have you stopped pursuing this activity? You will get a no immediately. Now, there are 3 types of yes that Chris Voss mentions. The first is a counterfeit yes. When you wish to say no and yes seems the most easy escape or to obtain more info, you can easily chicken out later. You can say yes, we'll do it, and give up the deal. Or you can simply say yes because you do not want to engage in an ordeal and you have an easy way out. The second type of yes is a confirmation, which means an innocent reflexive response to a black or white question with no promise of action. So even a confirmation type yes is useless. The third type of yes that Chris Voss mentions is a commitment. That is the real deal. So you have to know the difference. Get a yes with a commitment. And how do you get a commitment? By listing out the details of how this process is going to take place and not just yes, we have a deal. Now, how do we enforce a behavior change in our counterpart? The CNU, which is the Crisis Negotiation Unit of the FBI, or Quantico, has developed a behavior change stairway model, BCSM, that proposes 5 stages. The first is active listening, second, empathy, third, rapport, fourth, influence, and fifth is the stage of behavioral change. It takes any negotiator from listening to influencing behavior. That is the stairway you need to crawl. Now, to explain this further, let's try and understand what is active listening. Active listening has 4 stages. First, effective pauses. Let the other person keep talking until emotions were drained from the dialogue. Second is minimal encouragers. Say things like, yes, I see. Fourth, mirroring and labeling. You have to repeat and then put the emotions into words like it seems like. And the fourth is paraphrasing, mirroring in your own language with more effective words. Finally, once you've used all these 4, summarize it. Paraphrasing plus mirroring is equal to summary. It will eventually get the other party to say, that's right, and that is where you want to get to, because they don't want to agree with you. What you want is them to believe it is their idea. They need to have that subtle epiphany that, oh, that's right, this makes sense, and now they're invested. Another myth that Chris Voss busts is compromise. We've all been taught about making that win-win deal, how compromise works. He says, we compromise not because it's right. We compromise because it's easy and it saves face. So don't settle. Don't split the difference. Creative solutions are almost always preceded by a degree of risk, annoyance, confusion, and conflict. Accommodation and compromise never produce that. Embrace the hard stuff. That's where the great deals are. Never split the difference. The next trick is to make time your ally. The simple passing of time and its sharper cousin, the deadline, are the scores that put pressure on any deal to get it to conclusion. Deadlines are basically self-inflicted figments of our imagination, unnecessarily settling us for no good reason. So the next time you are on a business travel, never reveal when you are about to fly back, because it gives your counterpart the leverage to waste that time and use your deadline against you. But on the other hand, beware, if you never reveal a deadline, it increases the risk of an impasse. A very important rule to remember while approaching a negotiation is thinking that if you're thinking that the other guy thinks just like you're wrong. That's not empathy, that's projection. The next trick, the F-bomb. Don't worry, we're not going to talk about something else. It's about we only want what's fair, the F-bomb. So this creates a feeling of defensiveness and discomfort subconsciously whenever someone says that to you. So the ideal way to diffuse this F-bomb is by saying, I'm sorry, let's start again from the point where you felt you were being treated unfairly and we'll just fix it. Or simply mirror and label. The next trick is to bend the reality. We'll talk about thinking fast and slow later in more detail, but here it uses the anchor effect to bend the reality of your counterpart. It says, let the other guy go first most of the time, but be mindful that the other guy can also bend your reality by using a vague anchor. So you need to establish a range. Throw the off anchor. Anchor is basically throwing a number where you feel you can start the negotiation. It could be a low anchor if you are, let's say, approaching to buy a property, and it could be a high anchor if you are, let's say, wanting to sell one. So the next part is to pivot to non-monetary terms, because negotiation is much more intricate and subtle dynamic than just bargaining. So another rule is when you do talk numbers, use odd numbers. So how these odd numbers work is that psychologically it just gives the other person the perception of immovability and a well thought out calculation. And last, surprise with a gift to invoke reciprocity that we talked about in our video of psychology of influence. The next myth we are going to burst is why. I know it's a very important and critical word, why. People say start with why. It has its own place in process or product designing, but in negotiation, he says avoid why. You can start with what and how to calibrate any question. You need to avoid verbs like can, is, are, or does. So instead of asking why should I do that, ask how am I supposed to do that. You need to calibrate these questions to make them more open-ended, because a closed-ended question can simply be reverted by a yes or a no. It will not give you any further information or leverage. The next rule is to control your emotions. Keep them in check. Pause. Think. Even when assaulted, do not counterattack. Disarm your opponent by asking a calibrated question. Hows also lead to a successful implementation plan. Remember the committed yes, you need to ask a lot of hows to get that implementation plan and get a committed yes. A very, very important rule now, for especially for corporates. Beware of the people behind the table. Understand the whole negotiation space. You need to ask questions like how does it impact the rest of your team, or how on board are people not on this call. That will give you a real sense whether the person on the call is the decision maker or not, or can someone derail your deal. Making this all in essence is the 7-38-55 rule. Odd numbers, right? 7% of a message is based on the words. 38% is based or comes from the tone of your voice, and 54% comes from the speaker's body language and face. Now let's come to the last step, bargaining, the final bargaining while exchanging prices. It is not a comfortable dynamic for most people. So here are certain steps that will help you in bargaining. First, you need to understand your counterpart's style. He says there are 3 types of styles. First is accommodating. These kind of people spend most time in building relationships and they love a win-win. The second style is an assertive style. Their self-image is linked to how many things they can get done in a limited period of time, and they need to be heard. So simply listen to them. And the third type is the analyst. A person whose self-image is linked to minimizing mistakes. As much time as it takes to get it right, they are willing to invest, and they separate the negotiation from personal relationships. Now second, you need to understand how time behaves for each of these styles. For an analyst, time means preparation. For an accommodating person, times mean relationship building. And for an assertive person, time means money. They also have a completely different understanding of silence. For an analyst, silence means time to think. For an accommodating person, silence means perhaps the other person is angry. And for an assertive person, silence means they need to speak. So don't treat the other people the way you want to be treated. Instead, treat them the way they want to be treated. Now, it's very easy to say that your counterpart is simply crazy. The trick is to try and understand them irrespective of how you feel, howsoever crazy they are. The most common mistakes we make while calling someone crazy are, first, they perhaps could be ill-informed. You know, the famous term gigo, garbage in, garbage out. If they're not informed well, they would speak garbage. Second mistake that we can sort of perceive is they are constrained. They seem irrational because they cannot reveal certain type of info. And the third is they have other interests. You need to find the black swans, the important information that can simply change the game, and find that interest, the other interest of your counterpart. It is important to get face time for this. Black swans are simply leverage multipliers. Leverage, is of 3 types. Positive, the ability to give someone what they want. Negative, the ability to hurt someone. and normative, using your counterpart's norms or religious beliefs to bring them around. Now, to close, always prepare your one sheet negotiation tool before you enter any negotiation, because when the pressure is on, you don't rise to the occasion, you simply fall to the highest level of your preparation.